PHNX Coyotes podcast brought to you by the one and only DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download today using code PHNX and place a $1 football bet and get just $150 in free bets. It's just that easy. It's episode 10. I'm Leah Merrall here with Craig Morgan, Steve Peters. We just have to get something out of the way. Petey came in a little bit grumpy today.
A little stressed.
Is there anything you need to get off your chest?
No. And for those that do know me, they know sometimes I tend to run a little hot. Like I sometimes run on 10, 11, or 12. A couple of deep breaths, I'm good to go. And they have been called Grumpy Steve before. That's not the first that I've heard that either.
Can you tell us about the exercise you used to do at Lululemon?
Oh yeah, it's called a clearing. So you come into the space and you clear anything that is going to hold you back from being fully present in the moment. So you clear that to everyone, and so you can leave it behind and be present.
How do you go about this? Is there a way in which you clear things away?
We verbally won't do that today. They don't need to know, but we're all good. A couple of deep breaths, I'm good. We can talk hockey again.
All right. Well, we have a lot of hockey to talk because the beginning of training camp, that's like the kickoff of the NHL season, and the Coyotes training camp kicks off today. Craig already was at Gila River Arena, or the Renaissance Hotel right next door, for media day on day one of training camp, and there's already some storylines out of the camp like that we learned about this morning. So what are those? Let's dive
we'll
right
talk
in.
about the storylines that I wrote in a story that went out this morning, but there's actually news out of Coyotes media today. First off, Phil Kessel has a foot injury. He's in a walking boot right now. I saw him come into the photo shoot that always happens before the actual interviews, and he had his leg up on one of those scooters that can keep it immobile. So Bill Armstrong told me, the general manager for the Coyotes, told me he thinks the timeline is 2 to 3 weeks. They are going to hold him out of training camp. We'll see if he's ready to go for the season. Apparently this happened 2 to 3 weeks ago during training. So, that's a significant amount of time that he's going to miss and not be able to condition. I don't know what that means for, when he comes back. Even if he's ready for the start of the season, what sort of shape will he be in? That's a concern, clearly.
Yeah, and usually when you get your skates back on and you start skating, it's not, tomorrow you're going to play a game. I mean, there's a process for conditioning and training, game shape, timing, all of those things. And unfortunately for Phil, that's training camp. I mean, that's what you use training camp for, to get all of those things. I know they've been skating on their own, but training camps, when you ramp it up, you get some physicality into the practices. Timing is essential, and getting up to game speed, you need that to play. You sit for 3 weeks, now you got to start. That sets you back a long way, especially a player like Phil, who's getting longer in his career. If you're 19, 20, you rebound faster than when you're older. So for him, that's an unfortunate way to start the season. A guy that needs to be very good if he wants to get out of here.
That's precisely where I was going. Yeah,
and that's one of the storylines you wrote about.
Yeah,
in your
he's going to have to
today.
increase his value. Maybe not increase it, but at least maintain it. He had 20 goals. He led the team last year in goals. But you get off to this kind of start, it may take you a while to get going. So will Phil be able to work his way out of town because of that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a square peg in a round hole right now. I think management and Phil are both saying it. Hey, if we can work out something where I could play somewhere else, that would be great. I think management's behind that. But you got to get the right deal. And I think to do that, Phil's going to have to play himself into a situation where he can be traded. It's not just sit on the bench and I'm Phil Kessel, I'll get traded. He's going to have to score. And if he scores at the rate that he did last season, that trade will be easy.
Yeah.
I mean, there are teams that need guys to score specifically on the power play. So if we can get to that point where he's putting up numbers on the power play, he'll get that trade, and everybody will end this story happily.
Yeah. On the positive side, there was some good news for the Coyotes. Bill Armstrong revealed that all of the players, coaches, managers, hockey operations staff are fully vaccinated. That's a big deal in the NHL, and if you haven't been paying attention, just check out what's happening in Columbus. Zach Rinaldo was told he was not welcome because he refuses the vaccine, former Coyote, so he's not going to play for Columbus. And they had a coach as well, an assistant coach who they fired because he refused the vaccine. So they told him he couldn't perform his duties. That's a big deal. The NHL is not playing around with this. I think the last figure we saw was 97% of the players were fully vaccinated. I think there are 15.
I think it's 15 right now. There's a few, Bill Daly said in an interview last week, in the process of they're probably like in between the first and second.
So we'll get down to like a dozen.
Yeah.
So for those players, I mean, for people who don't know, there are all sorts of stipulations. We can dive deeply into this if you want to, but basically you're not going to be able to do a lot of the things that people who are vaccinated can do around the team. And if you go to Canada,
well, you don't.
Yeah,
You don't,
you're
yeah.
not going to participate at all.
Yeah.
So
You have to
it's a big deal.
quarantine for the mandatory amount of days.
Forfeit
so
your money.
You'll
I
stay in
mean,
the States.
Yeah.
And then if you stay in the States, we went through this scenario. So if you're in Boston, you're going to Montreal. Well, you can't go to Montreal because you're not vaccinated. So do you stay in Boston? Well, then what? Well, the team's going from Montreal to Toronto home. Then what do? Do you fly commercial back home? The logistics of this are going to be very difficult for some guys to navigate through. Again, it's people's personal decision. And if Zach Rinaldo, by name, was in his story came out today. If he's got some personal reasons for not doing that, that's his right. Doesn't have to get the vaccine. It'll make it more difficult for him to play in the National Hockey League this year. And it's funny. I heard Gary Bettman speak. Their intent is not to make this difficult for players to play. That is not why all these rules are in place. The rules are in place to keep the players who are vaccinated as safe as they possibly can keep them. Yes. So it's not about punishment. It's about safety and health protocols. And I think they were adamant about that from the league level. Again, it's a story that's going to transpire over the season. We're going to see it again where there's going to be, hopefully not shutdowns, but teams are going to be affected. It's just going to happen. And unlike last season, when the league had a lot of buffer time, when they could reschedule games and make adjustments, right now that Olympic break jams everything tight, and there aren't going to be places to fix the schedule. So that's another reason they're really watching these, protocols closely so that they don't run into those kind of problems.
Yeah, and just to be clear, and what you mentioned earlier about Zach, if he has personal reasons, that is his right not to get the vaccine. But I think where people maybe don't make the leap here is, yes, it's your right, but it doesn't free you from potential consequences of your actions. If you choose not to get the vaccine and the league, your employer, your team tells you you can't participate without it, well, that's their right too. So those are the consequences for a player like Zach Rinaldo.
Yeah, so for the Coyotes, it's good to hear that everybody's vaccinated. It makes travel much easier, and all of those issues fall to the wayside. So, hockey time.
Yeah, nice to get another small victory for the Coyotes. We'll take them.
We can't win the jersey thing either. If you haven't voted and you're listening, go on gophnx.com, look up the sports show. Actually, it's on Twitter.
It's on Twitter. There's a poll on Twitter.
Poll on Twitter for
here,
PHNX
I'll read
Sports.
Oh, and on
Good
Instagram,
grief.
yeah.
The Kachina is falling to the wayside,
We're
so we need some help.
pushing the Kachina here now. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay, well, then
it's little victories, Craig.
Hey,
little victories.
Get on Twitter and vote for the Coyotes Kachina.
Exactly. Is that pandering? Can I do that?
PD came so
Jacob,
prepared.
Can I pander? Is that welcome? Oh, some question. Don't tell us.
I think we should also tell people to actively troll people who vote for the Suns jersey. let's go for that.
Well, and the irony is that everyone was supposed to wear a jersey from the show they represent, and almost everyone showed up in a hockey jersey. Even Espo, who covers the Suns, he wore a Roadrunners jersey.
We know the truth.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I'm sorry I get off topic.
No, that's a good plug. That's a good plug. The PHNX_sports Twitter, there's a poll. Go vote. Another piece of news that came yesterday was that Cheniak has signed a PTO with the Coyotes. He was with the Coyotes in 2018-19, had 72 games played, 19 goals, 22 assists in that time. He has really been what do they call it when you can't land in suitcase player or something, where you're just all over? Yeah. He's back. Were you surprised to see that?
Yes, I was surprised to see it. I think it was Pierre LeBrun who broke the news yesterday. I didn't expect to see Cheniak here. I thought he would have other opportunities, to be honest. But Andre Tourigny addressed it today during media day, said he feels comfortable with this situation. He knows him. He has a relationship with him. That may have played into it as well. I saw Alex walk into the photo shoot as well, and Petey, he looks ripped. I mean, he looks absolutely ripped. Apparently, he was working here a lot of the offseason. He was skating at the ice den. I think he was skating with his dad, some of that, who's been a big mentor for him. They like where he is. Maybe he has a chance to make this roster because there are certainly some roster spots available. I even spoke to his agent, Pat Brisson. I'll have all this in a media day notebook tomorrow, but he likes the opportunity here.
I like Cheniak. I think he's a good fit here for right now. It's funny when you see a player like this that bounces from team to team to team, you think there must be something wrong. I tell you what, he is a really good kid. And I know he's not a kid anymore, but he's a really nice person. He does things the right way. He's respectful of everybody in the room. Like offensively, he's gifted and talented. Sometimes it just doesn't all come together for him. And it's it's the defensive side of the game he drifts away from sometime, and so he'll put more attention on that, and then the offense will struggle. He just hasn't been able to put the whole puzzle together. Once that happens, I think he can be an important player. And I think that's why this might be a really good opportunity for him in Arizona. The pressure is extremely minimal, and they want to be able to put NHL players on the ice. So I'm you don't want to get ahead of yourself. He's on a tryout contract, and he'll play a lot of preseason games to get a real good look. But I think he's a guy that they could use in this roster. And he has played middle ice before.
I was going to ask you about that very thing because there's not a lot of options at center.
No, and he's played a lot on the wing, and we've talked about how important that center ice position is, and how many responsibilities you have in that position. And that's one of the reasons Cheniak has been pulled onto the wing, because he could just focus on his offense. They need center iceman here. He wants to play center ice. He sees himself as a center iceman. His last few stops, he's always played on the wing. So it may work out for everyone.
The buzzword around media day today was opportunity. A lot of players and coaches and Bill all mentioned opportunity. There's plenty of opportunity, and Alex Galchenyuk's one of those guys that has an opportunity.
It's good to see him. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about center depth, and that was one of the things that you broached in your story today. What about the center depth for the Coyotes?
Well, we've got Nick Schmaltz, who's going to play in the top six, clearly. Johan Larsson's going to figure into that mix, and then it's just, we'll see. Maybe Galchenyuk, maybe Jay Beagle's there, maybe Barrett Hayden makes this roster. Maybe it's one of the other depth guys like Travis Boyd. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't either. And it's interesting for them. They've got a battle at center ice, and you'll see when you go through NHL rosters online, you'll see that C for center along people's names. Doesn't mean they play center.
No.
Like you see some teams, they have 6 or 8 centers.
Don't get me off on a tangent here.
Yeah.
That's driven by NHL.com, by the way.
Because it's erroneous.
Wrong all the time.
It's just wrong.
Yeah.
And so, you lose Christian Dvorak, who's a top 6 center, and I don't think you have anybody to replace him right now. The center ice position has been a concern in Arizona for, I don't know, 15 years? 20? I mean, it's
almost the whole
since JR. And you go, and Craig Janney and JR, and that's...
We got him up here somewhere, don't we?
That's where you need to have a strong presence up the middle to win. They don't have it. They're trying to build it. Hopefully they get there. But you still need 4 guys that can play it every single night. So I think there's going to be some auditioning here in the next few weeks. I've got different guys getting a chance.
No doubt.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember when we were talking to AJ last week about Colorado, like they have an abundance of centers, and I was like, oh, what's that like? Because we don't have that.
What's it like to have Nate McKinnon?
Yeah, I know.
Caliber.
And you think of also just like all the extremely successful NHL teams, and you can name a star center on every single one.
You don't win cups for the most part. You just don't win cups without them. You don't win cups.
I mean, maybe one of those 8 draft picks the Coyotes have next year will land our franchise center. Fingers crossed.
This time or the next time around, maybe one of the next 2 drafts, if they can get Wright or Bedard, who's even better.
Yeah, very true.
Right is not wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, get it trending. Or what is wrong for right? Was that the one you wanted to go with? Yeah. Oh man, that's a good one. Well, there is an area that is more of a strength for the Coyotes, which would be the defense position.
Yeah, clearly there are still guys who have to prove something here. You've got Jakob Chychrun as your number 1 defenseman, still emerging, and I am curious how he's going to navigate these waters because they're not going to be as offensively gifted. It's going to be hard for him to produce points, I think, in this environment. They're going to be losing more. It's going to be tough for Chick to keep progressing. One of the many reasons I don't think he should be the captain, by the way, is because he's got enough to worry about. His game is still developing. This is a tough environment. But they've got some interesting pieces. Does Shane Gostisbehere have some game left? Can he revive his career? Can Anton Stralman be that anchor for Chick on the right side, like Alex Goligoski was? You've got some Russians that are interesting prospects. There are a lot of guys to look at here. I know I'm forgetting someone, but
well, I think the issue is going to be everybody's got to be mindful of Jakob Chychrun's development. That is the most important thing on the back end for this season. And on paper right now, I know you've got to look at Strowman being his partner, experienced NHL guy, been in the Stanley Cup Finals twice. But those things don't always work out on the ice like they do on paper. You know, we talk about Connor Timmins being a right-hand guy that could maybe play with him. He's just maybe not ready yet. We don't know. Like, you don't know what to expect from Connor Timmins. So I think from a team that you're questioning where their strengths are, it's definitely the back end or potentially the back end.
Yeah.
Shane Gostisbehere came into the league as a high draft pick, high offensive player. He's the guy. The last 2 years, he hasn't been the guy. Ice time is dwindling. He fell out of favor in Philadelphia. Maybe that comes back here. You just don't know. So a lot of storylines on the back end. What you don't want to see happen is you don't want Jacob Chychrun to try to do everything himself. And that's a fear I have when he looks around the bench going, well, I can do this by myself, offensively and defensively. Well, you can't. It's a team game. So you've got to be able to have other options to pass to. You've got to let other guys do their jobs. And if he takes on too much, I don't know, is it too much emotionally for him? Is he put too much pressure on himself? He just needs to keep developing, stay within himself, and keep learning the game. So I hope it falls into place for Chick. More on the defensive side. Offensively, don't worry about Chick. He'll be fine. But hopefully a guy like Strowman can go, okay, here's how these situations work. I really hope that pairing clicks.
Yeah, you agree with it. It's the most logical one.
For sure.
I mean, but as we saw with OEL and Hammer, they didn't mesh at all. He was acquired to be OEL's partner, and then it never happened. It just didn't mesh. So you don't know until you get him on the ice. But when I look at this roster, like what are the other options for Chychrun on the right side? They have right-handed guys, but do you want to put Connor Timmins on that pairing right now?
One of these rookies.
Do you want to put Bush there?
Yeah, I mean, but Bush can't. I mean, maybe. Maybe. Bush played with O for a while last year, and they clicked, and they had some offensive upside, and actually had a few games where they played well. Bush just couldn't sustain that. But maybe. I mean, I think it's going to be the one thing Tournier has the luxury of doing is he can shuffle things up. He can mix things up without being too scrutinized, and you can't do that. Do whatever you want to do. Try different things and try different pairings. So I think he'll have some latitude to find what fits best, and it might take 10, 15 games. The truth is, most teams replace 2 or 3 players on a team. This team lost 14 players off last year's opening night roster. They are not going to click on October 14th. They're just not. It takes a long time of games, even the preseason games. They're not going to click right away. They're not going to be comfortable with each other. You don't know where people are. You've got to build that in. Like, you get some of these teams like Pittsburgh and Washington have played with line mates for a decade. Like, you just know where they are. These guys don't even know each other for 3 months. So it's going to take time. And I think, that's, again, day one of training camp. That's where this all starts.
So, Petey, would you put money on the Coyotes losing their first game of the season?
Interesting.
Knowing all of that.
Yeah, that's a very interesting bet.
Especially
because
when you look at where they're going.
They're going to Columbus, who's another team that lost some of their high-end talent.
Yeah.
They're with a new coach that's never coached in the league before. He's been assistant.
And no Zach Rinaldo.
No Zach Rinaldo.
No assistant coach.
So back to that. I don't know. We're going to have to get a little bit closer. I know we'll have to wait and see what the money line is on that one, but it's going to be something to keep an eye on because they're opening up in Columbus and Buffalo.
Exactly. It's
really fascinating.
It's a perfect way to start the season.
Yeah.
Where
do they fit?
I had to wonder, like I said this in the story as well, but did the schedule makers look at this as like,
let's just see.
Let's get an early read on who the worst team in the league.
The Rangers and the Capitals against each other, second game, which... so we'll definitely have to keep an eye on those odds. I'll be really curious once we get a little bit closer. And you can get all of those odds on the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook app. You can download it using the code PHNX. If you put a $1 bet on any football game, you get $150 in free bets. Really a great way to learn how to get a handle on betting, which I am working on, so that when hockey season starts, I will be ready to do these kinds of things. And I'm excited to get into that as hockey season starts, especially, following all of these storylines like that. What you just saying that just prompted that in my mind. Like, if they're not going to be meshing, like, how is that going to result on the ice? And I know we don't have high hopes for the Coyotes this year in general, but just like little things like that, how can that help from a gambling perspective? So definitely something to follow along on DraftKings. Super, super, super easy app to use. They also have same game parlays, which right now they have a an offer that if you do a same game parlay on any NFL game, you'll be credited up to $25 if your bet loses. So it's just a really cool way to consume sports in a bit of a different way than what we've all been used to here in Arizona.
And we're definitely going to take a closer look at their over-under right now. Is a team prop in the NHL right now where you can see points total.
Oh, we will be. Yeah, I think.
Last I looked,
I cannot wait.
It was they had them in the 60s. We'll look closer as they start to develop their roster because
Jacob and I have had this conversation.
Are you looking at that for the under?
Yeah, because Colorado finished with 46 points, right?
They're in the Central Division too,
so they're in a tougher division. We'll wait till the rosters come out, but I know those are some things we're going to look at.
We will for
in the
sure be looking
next few
Can I make a suggestion too? I think when you do these reads, since you just saw Hamilton, you should maybe sing them.
Oh
wow.
God!
Hey, we're doing pandering for ratings.
Oh my God! No, I'm not. Listen,
No.
Shane sang on the ASU postgame show,
Oh,
and someone commented ASU just got another penalty for that song.
No.
So we can leave that to them. But anyway, DraftKings Sportsbook, code PHNX, 21 and over, Arizona only, gambling problem, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. New customers only, minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And PD also mentioned that poll. Go vote in. Follow us on Twitter, PHNX_sports. And we also...
Yeah, you can't let us lose.
We hit 4,000.
We just hit 4,000 followers?
In this show.
Yo!
You guys.
I mean...
Now, Allie'd hit the button. Do we have a button? The cheers and all that?
Oh, yeah.
We do have a...
See, Allie was...
Yeah!
Better late than never.
Nicely
Awesome.
done.
Oh.
Petey just put down the laptop, by the way, so things are
I
getting
know, so
serious here.
I just had to look at some numbers. I want to be informed.
I thought you were going to get serious.
I thought he was going to pull up your article on GoPHNX.com.
Seriously. let's talk more about
like
Craig's
it was a dad
writing.
moment for me. He just put it down. He's like, okay, I'm armed with all the information.
That's
now I
all
need
the
to
prep
talk
we
to
need,
you."
right, Craig?
Huh?
Read your article.
I literally have it
Read your
open in a tab on my computer.
You don't need to pump his articles.
Obvious
They
pandering.
take care of themselves.
Yeah,
Seriously.
pandering
Uncle.
to GoPHNX.com
Craig's a
where
writer.
people
Yes,
I'm
should
okay with that.
become a
Got it.
member.
Go to the site.
Yeah, become part of family. Get
I
a
guess.
shirt if you do the year membership, and if you're unsure, you can get your first month just for 50 cents to try it out. So definitely check us out. GoPHNX.com. All right, let's continue along the storylines. Another big question mark, the goaltender situation. And I know we've talked about this a few times on the show already, but I at least thought they would have signed another goalie by now.
I think Carter Hutton's going to be in this tandem. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Bill Armstrong likes him as a human being. First of all, he had him in St. Louis. He's obviously struggled the last 3 seasons when he was in Buffalo. Lots of players struggle when they go to Buffalo, but he also had injuries. There's a lot that he dealt with it. Listen, there's some people that don't think that Carter Hutton can revive his career, but Bill Armstrong's giving him a chance again, an opportunity here in Arizona. He's healthy again. His head is clear, so we'll see how he handles that situation.
Yeah, he's a 20-win guy in Nashville, but it's been a while, and he struggled a little bit in Buffalo, but he still had 18 wins 3 years ago. So he's won games in this league. He's got a lot of games under his belt. The concern I have with Carter Hutton is a guy coming off a difficult season last year. He was 1-10 with Buffalo. He had a hard time finding wins, but the team did too. So let's temper it with that.
Yeah.
The concern I have is that position specifically. It's all about how you're feeling mentally and your confidence. And if you don't have that confidence, it's really hard. And we've seen it with really good goaltenders go through those periods here. When Carter Hutton signed his contract to join this team, Darcy Kemper was here. And in his mind, he's going, okay, I'm following an elite goaltender in this league who's going to play 65 games. I'll get my starts. I'll get my touches. I'll get a play. The focus isn't on me. 2 weeks later, Kemper's gone. You're the guy.
Yeah.
Where does that put his mindset? And I just don't know. Like, I don't know him personally. I've never met him. Maybe he's chomping at the bit to go, okay, I can show him I'm the guy. Or maybe he's going, whoa. Hey, let's get my agent in here and retalk this contract.
Go find another goalie, okay?
Yeah. So I just don't know.
Yeah.
I think when you look at his body of work from some of these other teams in Nashville and St. Louis, he had been given a lot of games to play. So the pressure isn't going to be on him here. And so it's going to be a good place for a goaltender to find his game again. I think he'll be okay.
Yeah. When you look at the backup,
Who is the backup?
well, I mean, Koshinach is listed as the backup, but I don't know that he's going to be the backup. They may pick someone up on waivers. Would you go after one of these free agents like Curtis McElhinney or Devin Dubnyk, who's been here already? Would you give them a chance to split time with Carter Hutton? I'm curious to see
Only
what they're
if
going to
you
do.
figured out what you're going to do in Tucson, because this whole rebuild is about what's happening down there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And who you're developing down there. So Prosvetov is going
He's
to
gonna be the
in
guy.
Tucson.
Yeah.
Prosvetov's, when you're looking at 3, 4, 5 years down the road, it's Ivan Prosvetov. Right now,
Right.
I mean, that the Czech kid Vemelka had a good weekend. I don't know if he's ready yet. Kozinesh has played in the NHL. He has games in the NHL.
Yeah.
He won a few in the NHL. Do you start that way? I honestly, I don't know. I think the bigger picture is what are they trying to do 2 and 3 years down the road?
Right.
Does getting a Devin Dubnyk make any difference to this season? Does it help?
I don't think it hurts you in terms of development for the other guys, because I don't know that. Again, I don't know that Kozinesh is much a part of their plans, right?
And if he's not part of your plan, he can
maybe
sit on the bench
Prosvetov
for 60.
and Vimelka down in Tucson
Right.
to play. That's your pair there.
And
They get-
Tendik's coming.
Tendek, yeah, I guess goes back to the E,
East
which is
Coast League.
fine.
Yep.
It's fine for goalies
As long as
to
he's
develop
playing.
in that league. Yeah, you play a lot. So maybe you're okay. And then, if you draft a goalie in this next draft, then you reevaluate.
Yeah.
But maybe you sign one of those guys to a 1-year deal and
I agree.
you move forward. Because, listen, Devin Dubnyk and Curtis McElhinney, at some point they're going to get desperate here. Training camps are starting.
Yeah.
They don't have contracts. They're not even on PTOs. So
And if Kozinesh is not a part of your plan, it's okay to let him sit on the bench for 65 games a year. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Or if they split 40-40, does it, in the long-term plans of what they're doing in the Coyotes, does it matter? It's more importantly about how they develop the guys down in Tucson.
But my question is, you mentioned confidence with the goaltending position. Is it possible for a goalie to build confidence even if the team is losing? Can they still be playing well and building their own confidence for
sure.
their individual
I mean,
play?
for sure you can play well. Like
Yeah.
the one advantage these goalies are going to get is they're probably going to see a lot of shots. And we talked about that on the show where
Is that
you
an
get
advantage for you?
40, 50
Is that
shots.
how you looked at it when you played the position?
When I played, I was in the box or in section 101 when playing.
No, didn't
but,
you play against who was the
Well, he was Eddie Belfour's
Eddie
backup.
Belfour? Yeah.
Well, he
When
played.
you were pushing
I
him out of
watched.
the net, on one of your hot
I
streaks,
picked up
did
the
you-
pucks in practice. I got it.
You
But I watched them. I understand the position.
Yeah.
And so I think you can play well and lose. And I think you can make 40, 45, 50 saves and get in a rhythm and get in a groove and still lose the game.
Will you still be confident after knowing because it's
hard
more
to
of an
lose.
individual position?
It's hard to lose, but then you're losing as a team. You're not losing as a goaltender. And that's a difference. So if you're giving up the wrist shot from the blue line that you should have had and you lose the game, that's on you. If you're getting pelted with 50, 55 shots and you're losing 3-2, that's on the offense. Like you've got to defend better and you've got to score more. So I think you can have a mix of, as a goaltender, I think you can be confident, happy with your game on how you're playing. You're never happy when you lose. Don't mean that at all. But you can go, yeah, I'm playing the best I can. Like every goalie wants to stop every shot every night. They just do. You can't. And this team's going to struggle to generate offense. So it's going to have to come back to, we have to stop everybody and hope we win 1-0.
Right.
That's been a mentality in Arizona for far too long. They have to win 1-0. It was under Tippett. It was under Tocchet. Hey, we got to try to win 1-0 tonight, which means your goalie has to be really, really good, and we got to find a way to squeak one in. And unfortunately, that's going to be the mantra again this season.
It is funny. I just realized that all the coaches have last names that start with the letter T. I just
The last
realized.
three?
Tocchet, Tippett, Tourigny. Wow.
That just registered in my
Wow.
brain.
Fun fact, Leah.
Don't look at me like that, Jacob.
Where are you going with this?
I'm going
I
nowhere
call
with
it
it.
trend.
Oh.
It's tricky.
I
Okay.
really had nowhere to go with that.
This is why you all come to this show, to get this next level content.
Yeah.
From the two of us. Yeah.
That's in-depth analysis. That's good. That's good stuff.
Oh my god, I can't. Oh man. Well, let's stick with T, because one of the topic, what did it do with
Look at you.
the Tucson
Another
kids?
segue here.
See, don't tell me I didn't have a plan. We're gonna dive deeper into Tucson, I think tomorrow on our podcast tomorrow, so we won't get too much into it.
We
but
are? I swear I didn't know.
Do
I
Do you
swear I
read
didn't
our
know.
texts?
I-
We're off the rails.
This is awkward.
This is off the rails.
I
This is
did not-
awkward.
I did not know that. I
You
will
even
study
w-
tonight.
You even wore your Tucson Runner shirt on Monday. You
I
wore it.
did. I did. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll read the emails.
That's okay.
Apologize.
You are aware there's a city in Arizona named Tucson?
My kid went to school there.
Okay. See? That's
Yeah.
a good start.
I'm going to try to catch him.
You
I
don't even
tried
need
to
to
see the
brush up on
Roadrunner.
this. You're sandbagging here.
No, I know.
You know everything there is to know.
So the
about
Tucson kids, that goes back to the center discussion with Barrett Hayden.
Yes.
Where does Barrett Hayden play? Well, I've seen depth charts with Barrett Hayden in it on several media publications. Barrett Hayden, in my mind, will not be playing for the Arizona Coyotes.
Should
I
he?
don't. No,
Yeah.
he shouldn't.
But
And
do you think he will?
I like Barrett. I think he's got a lot of NHL experience. We haven't seen the ceiling on this kid yet. But if you want him to be everything you drafted him to be, he needs to do it down in Tucson, not here. And that's Soderstrom. That's Jan Yannick. Go down there.
Yep.
Get
Completely
some
agree.
chemistry. Get some development. Win. Have some success. Do it together. Don't come here.
PD, let's try and name the guys that have been rushed in the history of the
We had one
Coyotes.
year that was really bad. We had one year where it was the Bodker, Turris, Tikhonov year.
Mhm.
And it was Wayne Gretzky was the coach, and he had
Not
an
a team
affinity,
name.
but he had an affinity for those young, talented, skilled players. And
Yeah.
those three fell into that category, and they probably weren't ready at
Was
that
Peter
time.
Mueller in that mix too? Did he get rushed a little bit too?
Peter Mueller was a heck of a hockey player that we always wanted more things from. He did go through the process rather quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
And so did college kid, concussion. Got the concussion. The
defenseman?
Kalanos.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
Kalanos.
Chris
Chris Kalanos, another high-end skilled guy that came really quick. We've talked about the mix of public relations,
Yep.
management wanting to see their draft pick play. All of those things became more important than let's develop a kid for 2 or 3 years down the road. It
Max
just
Domi,
did several times.
Max Domi, Brendan Perlini, Dylan
Yeah.
Strome. We can keep going.
List is long.
That
Maybe
could
some
be
guys
a,
on the roster right now.
that could
it's
be a
it's
whole
true, and
show.
it's
Keller maybe.
so. And I have to say this for the Coyotes management right now. They're firm in their plan. They've made a plan, and they plan to stick to the plan.
I hope they stick to the plan. Because
I think they will.
Okay.
I really do.
Because I'm especially with Hayden, I keep hearing these whispers that he could make the NHL roster, and I do think it's a mistake. Now, of all the guys that we just mentioned, he's probably the farthest along in his development. But again, look at his last 2 years. He just hasn't been able to play consistently, whether it was injuries or COVID
Right.
or. Yeah, and listen, there was mismanagement of his development. So, don't you want this guy to have some continuity? Like you said, go down, play lots of minutes, all situations, find his confidence, play at an elite level, show he can do it at the AHL level before you thrust him into this situation. And also, what about the environment you're throwing him into?
Yeah.
This is, I mean, you can say all that you want. You want to build the culture. You've got the right veterans in place. They're still going to be losing, and losing is not fun.
Yeah, but if I'm the kid, and I'm going to try to look at it from Barrett Hayton's perspective. I've been here. I've been trying to do what you've asked. I've tried to be a good soldier. I'm going to come into camp. I'm going to be physically fit. I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to work hard. So from his perspective, if I'm one of the top 4 centermen at camp,
Right.
why am I not on this team? Like, why can't I make this team? What do you mean? You want me to develop? Well, I'm one of your top 4 right now. Why can't I develop here? Like you're letting Jacob Chikrin do or Clayton Keller do. Why can't I do that? The truth is, that's a fair question. If he is one of your top 4 centers, does he develop here? I really would have liked to see him last year blow the wheels off the American League, and he didn't. The year before that, he didn't. But if he comes in as one of the top 4 centers in camp, I don't know how you say no. I know we're
Yeah.
all sitting there rooting for 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road, but kids only have a career window of 3, 4, 5 years. You can't begrudge a kid because it's not the right time.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I mean, if he's one of your top 4, maybe he plays. So there will be some whispers and grumblings, and these are the things that Bill Armstrong and Andre Tournier are going to have to go through. What's more important? And if he goes down to Tucson knowing in his mind he was one of the best 4 centers at camp, what does that do to the kid? Is he a kid that goes, okay, I'm going to show you, I'm going to work really hard, or is it going to be the heck with you guys? I already did my best. I'm going to coast. I don't think that's Barrett Hayton, by the way. I think he is a guy that's going to earn what he gets, but you don't want to stunt the kid's development because he he quits on you either. So it's there's a lot going on in these 3 weeks that lead up to things 3 years from
You
now.
just highlighted so much of what's important in the development process too, and something that they've gotten wrong a lot of times in the past. All of those things and many more come into play when you're talking about the development of players. You have to manage so many things. It's not just the on-ice stuff, the tactical stuff, building the body. There's so much mental, psychological stuff that you have to work on as well.
And that was one of the questions that you brought up in your article was, can Jacob Chychrun progress in this environment? That was one of the questions you asked. And we've already kind of touched on it. You mentioned it as well, because one of the other questions you asked was, will Tourigny name a captain?
Yeah.
And not necessarily, they don't necessarily, well, they kind of go hand in hand because it's suspected that when there is eventually a captain name, it will be Chychrun, but there's a lot of thought that it's too soon now to name him captain.
I know a lot of the fans want to see Jacob Chychrun wear the C next season, and I get why. In a lot of ways, it makes sense. You can see Jacob Chychrun becoming the captain of this team down the road, but we've talked about this before. He has a lot of development to do, particularly on the defensive side of the puck. He's young. He's 23 right
23,
now.
yeah.
Still developing as a player. Let him develop. Let him not worry about everybody else, having to be that example for everyone else, managing everyone else, all the things that a captain has to do. That shouldn't be on Jacob Chychrun's plate this soon in his career. He needs to focus on himself and get to be the best player that he can be before he can take on all those other responsibilities. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and if you wear the C in hockey, it's if it were just managing your teammates on the ice, meaning, hey, I'll be our voice to the referees, I'll be our voice to the coach, I'll band us together in the locker room on game time, maybe he is the guy right now. But the responsibilities of a captain of an NHL team are so vast and so far beyond that. It's things like, hey, we're on the road, we should have a team meal. The captain organizes that. Like he gets everybody together, or he also takes care of the new players. Hey, here's how things work in the NHL. Do you have somebody to go to dinner with? Get back in Phoenix. Hey, you sure you got a place to live? There's so many things. He puts everybody under his wings, and I don't think that's fair to thrust that on Jacob Chychrun right now. Yeah. You look back at Shane Doan. Shane Doan does that anyway. That's how he is as a person. And look at the maturity level he had by the time he was a captain.
Yeah, he didn't become the captain until 2003, so it took him a while in his
Exactly.
career. He was an older player by the time. Not older, but
he's experienced. He'd been around the league. And right now, Jacob Chychrun has to focus on Jacob Chychrun. Not saying he's not a leader of this team, not saying he can't be the captain, but let's, as a fan base of this team, let Jacob Chychrun worry about Jacob Chychrun right now. And I think that's the most important thing for him.
And I think that's what's going to happen too. I've asked Andre Tourigny about this a couple times, about a month and a half ago, and then again last week I asked him, "Are you still leaning toward just running with a bunch of alternate captains?" And he said, "Definitely. It just makes sense." He believes that this should happen organically. That a captain just comes out of you know it when you have a captain, and it has to be something that everybody settles on. Everybody sees it within the organization, whether it's management, coaches, or players. That's not the case right now. So, and he's a first-year coach too, so he needs to get a feel for his players as well and how the room operates. So let's let all that happen. Let's not worry about the captaincy. Yeah. It's not that important right now.
Right.
Do you think that in the next, let's just say 5 years for the sake of this question, can you see Jacob Chychrun potentially playing to a level where he's considered for the Norris?
I thought he should have been considered higher last season based on the season he had. I really did. And there were some people that agreed with me. I'm trying to remember where he finished. Pete, do you remember? Was he like 10th?
Yeah, he finished lower than I think we were anticipating here.
I think he should have definitely been top 5. I had him as a finalist, to be honest.
Yeah, one of the problems is he's here.
Yes,
he's in Arizona.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're not going to win a lot of games, and that factors into it.
Yeah. Projecting awards is actually something you can bet on DraftKings as well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You just set me up, didn't you?
I'm always setting you up. You just don't know. People are already putting money on Darcy Kemper winning the Vezina. I've seen a few of those on Twitter.
That might be a good bet, by the way.
Yeah, so those are already bets that you can go do. So yeah, yes, we're not quite at games yet, but there are some things that you can keep an eye on. I think that could be a good bet, Darcy Kemper, but I'd be curious to look at the odds. I'll have to do that. So don't forget DraftKings Sportsbook app, code PHNX to get $150 in free bets. You definitely want to use those because that's just the best way to get into this. And it's such an easy app to use. I've said it again and again. You can get your money right away, like not a week. You can get it same day. It's so easy to deposit money, too easy. But it's really easy to withdraw your money as well. So you can, do $5 here, you can do $100 there, like whatever you want to do. DraftKings makes it super, super easy. So we should, when the season gets closer, we'll like actually go through and pull up all these odds, because I'd be really, really curious to look at the odds for individual winners, the league winners, all of that stuff. I think that would be really interesting to look at as we get closer.
Vegas is really good at this too. With odds, it's scary sometimes how dead on they are with their projections.
It is.
There's an amazing
on the spreads of those games.
I really don't understand.
If it's 11, if it's 11.5, they win by 11. Like, I don't know how they do it. Jacob, insight?
Do I have insight?
Yeah, how does that work? Like, if it's 3.5, it's a field goal.
Well, typically in football, home team gets 3 on its own. Like it's
just for being the home team.
Automatic, like 3-point.
They're the home team.
Even the Jets.
From there it gets and then from there it gets spread out, right? So then from there they judge based off of past performances, whatever. So then they'll set the line after they account for home field.
The algorithms are honestly amazing.
Yeah, that's one piece of info. There's so much data that goes.
Yeah, it
into
is incredible.
And it changes, and that's the other thing about DraftKings too. It's like so up to date. It changes hour by hour sometimes.
I know. That's why you got to get in early.
Yeah.
On some games, especially those college games, bet them early, because my wife and I bet the same game, and I had a much better spread than she did.
But you could also bet like while games are happening, which is kind of cool.
Sometimes they change based off of where they're seeing the money come
Right,
in.
yeah. Right.
They'll change the line if they see 90% of the money coming in on the over. They might shift that line just a little bit, thinking that hey, like let's cut it,
even it out.
Just a bit. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait. I really can't wait to get into all of that, and I'm becoming more versed in sports betting. So on the subject also of player development, let's talk about Clayton Keller. Is that someone you consider was rushed? I mean, he was also given a huge contract.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see him fitting in this year? Where do you see?
It's a really good question. I mean, he's one of the biggest storylines in my opinion. Of course, everyone's going to look at him because he's the Coyotes' highest paid player. For better or for worse, fair or not, that's just the microscope under which he's going to be viewed because he's the highest paid player. He had a terrific rookie season. He hasn't had a terrific season since. There's no way to slice it other than to say that he hasn't lived up to the contract, to the expectations of him as an offensive player. I know he did a lot of training here. We hear that every summer, so I want to wait and see whether there are actually fruits of that labor. I was told that he put in a lot of work this summer, and he's listened to sort of the critique from management and from the coaching staff of what he needed to do, to get bigger, just to get stronger, because he needs to play inside the dots more. He needs to be able to win some battles. There are a lot of things that they need to see from Clayton Keller. They need to see him impact the game on a consistent basis instead of vanishing for stretches, whether it's in games or stacking games on end. And listen, if Clayton Keller isn't impacting the game by producing points, he's probably not going to impact the game. He's never going to be known as a great defensive player in some of these other areas. So he needs to produce. That's what comes with that kind of contract. That's the expectation for him. And again, all eyes are on Clayton Keller, maybe even more so now because a lot of those other pieces are gone now.
Yeah, and he's a player that is continued to be a perimeter player here. When you talk about playing inside or outside the dots, he's a guy that's too far from the net. When you give him time and space, he's a skilled enough guy that he can score and make good plays. He just is. He's got really good hands. Yeah. He's got a good shot. He can have that tricky little wrist shot, and he's going to beat some goaltenders. He'll put up some offensive numbers. But if he wants to take that next step, he's got to learn to get to we call them the difficult areas, the tough areas, the dirty areas. Got to get inside the hash marks. He's got to get closer to the net. And to do that, you have to be able to fend off defenders. You have to be strong enough to separate yourself from a defenseman, and he just hasn't been able to do that. It's a big year for him. The eyes are all on him right now. He's going to be a top-line player. He's going to get top-line minutes, and he's making top-line money.
Yep.
So you got to produce. And it's, as a kid, the very first time he walked into a locker room was right after his college season ended. He walked into the locker room in St. Louis, and he played. I don't know if you remember that game that he played in St. Louis where they dressed him that game. He was a kid. Like, he was so young physically. Like, he was he walked in the locker room. Oh my goodness!
I remember Tip saying that about him. He looks
shocked.
like a kid out there. Yeah.
And that first game, we were just hopeful he would get through it because that was a big, tough St. Louis Blues team. We just wanted him to physically get through the game without getting killed. Like it was that frightening. There was a fear that he was going to get hurt because he was that slight. He has put on some meat on his frame. He is getting bigger, but he needs to be a stronger player. It's not always about his weight. You got to be stronger. You got to be able to push off a defenseman and fight for your space. You don't need to be big and massive. There's a lot of guys that have success that are smaller, but he has to get that fearless, tougher, stronger pace to his play.
Do you think if he doesn't perform let me rephrase my question. Is he part of the Coyotes' long-term future plans, or could he potentially be another piece that they could move to acquire assets?
Well, I mean, again, depending on where he goes in his development, if he can take the next step, maybe he is a part of their core. But in terms of, if he doesn't, that contract's hard to move. Yeah. He's got a lot of term left on it, and it's a big number, and we're in an era now. Look, the cap, though, there are a lot of teams that are cap strapped anyway, but then you throw in COVID and how it's impacted the economics of the league. We're going to have a flat cap. I mean, it's going up $1 million next year. We're basically going to have a flat cap for the foreseeable future, so things get even tighter. So it's really tough to move a contract like that, especially if you stack multiple years where you look at the kid and you say, hey, he's not producing to that level.
Yeah, that's another one that management's going to have to wrestle with, and luckily he has a lot of voices in that room now, Bill Armstrong does, to listen to, because you do have to weigh the contract term and dollar amount versus his performance on the ice. Right now it's not close. Like, he hasn't performed to a 9 point whatever.
So it's 7.1, but yeah.
$7.1 million player at this point in his career, but he starts putting up numbers. If he's scoring 20, 25 this year, if he can, then maybe the team needs scoring. You need offense. So if he can start to develop that part of his game and say, yes, he's going to be a perennial 25 goal scorer, 25, maybe get a few more than that. A lot of those on the power play. Yeah, he's a valuable asset then. So a lot to be told yet. I know if they could have got Clayton Keller off the books right now, I think they would have loved to.
Oh, I agree. Both Keller and Schmaltz, they would have moved those contracts if they could. So, to answer your question, Jacob Chicken was really the only untouchable on that entire roster, and heck, most of the roster ended up going elsewhere anyway. But yeah, those contracts were harder to move. And Nick Schmaltz, same thing. Got to get more physical. Got to be able to win more battles. He's very slight.
And there's two players you just mentioned, like with Clayton Keller. I'll take my hats off to the kid for his preparation. He is one of those that studies the game. He watches the game every night. He watches the highlights. He tries to pull good things from good players. He spends a lot of time with his video. He really, truly does want to get better. Sometimes he doesn't see himself the same way the coaches do, if that makes sense. And I think once that connects and he goes, gosh, maybe they're right, that maybe that will help him blossom. But he does really care, and he really studies the game. With Nick Schmaltz, there are times when Nick Schmaltz has the puck that you go, my goodness, is this kid good?
The skill level's so high.
When he turns it on and turns it up, and he has everything going for me. He can skate, unbelievable hands and vision, and his touch around the net is phenomenal. You just don't see it enough. It can happen within the same game where you go, wow, that was a great shift, and the next 2 or 3 he disappears. The consistency is his game is his biggest problem, and has been for years since he was in Chicago. It's the consistency of his game. So can he find that? I talk about conditioning and preparation for him too. Like, it's not about being a big bulky guy, but it's about being conditioned and fit enough to be able to play a 60-minute game consistently. Because if he can find that, he now is a number 1 center, and we're really going to like his contract. But he's got to find that consistency. And I tell you, there are moments in a game that he can wow you, and it just isn't often enough.
Fair enough. I don't want to give away all of the storylines because you can find those in. We're plugging Craig's article again, but
that's true. And but a lot of good information.
But there's a lot of good information, and like you mentioned, you'll also have your media day notes up tomorrow. Is that what you said? So
probably have them up later tonight.
Look at that.
Work.
And then
Yeah,
how the writing is working. You never know until you sit down at the computer and it starts coming out.
So if you're not already a member, make sure you become a member at gophnx.com. Not only do you get access to all the stories behind the paywall, but you also become part of our member Discord, which is always active. And Craig and Petey and I try and go in there as much as possible. That's been a lot of fun. You said this yesterday, like the people in there are just so knowledgeable. Like sometimes I'm like, oh my God, they know things that I don't know. So, I mean, it's a really, really cool place. And you can check out our Coyotes shirt as well. Believe it's still the top selling shirt, but there's some other amazing shirts in the PHNX locker as well.
It's really about the revenue too, right? You know, people can vote for that Suns jersey on Twitter, but
true,
you know,
but
we're bringing.
But who's the top selling shirt on the
Exactly.
PHNX website? I mean, I'm just saying.
And there's more coming. There's some good hockey designs coming.
Yes.
Like the season's coming, and there's some cool hockey T-shirts.
We have a lot of good stuff planned. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow us on Twitter at PHNX_Coyotes, at PHNX_Sports on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts as well so you don't miss an episode. We're bringing you stuff 5 days a week. Wrapping up, there's just some other little training camp tidbits that I wanted to quickly get to. PD was telling me some cool things the other day that I had no idea about training camp. The 3-hour rule.
The 3-hour rule today.
Can you tell everyone
I'll
what
make
that
it brief
is?
on the 3-hour rule. And this came about after the shortened lockout of the 13-14 season. And part of the collective bargaining agreement that they agreed to at that time, players for the first 5 days of training camp cannot have more than 3 hours of scheduled events in the first 5 days. So in the old days, back when the team was down at the old America West Arena, coaches could do whatever they want. You'd practice, you'd work out, you'd eat, you'd stretch, you'd skate again. You'd have 2 a days. They'd go on the ice twice a day. And they were there all day. But when we talked to Ray Whitney yesterday, he talked about that's how you got in shape in training camp. Well, those days are no longer. So you can only have 3 hours of scheduled events. So if you have a meeting at 8:30, you have to be done by 11:30. That means your workout, your stretch, your video meetings, and your on ice work, and then your post-game or post-practice workout have to be all done within that 3 hours. And I tell you, there are times when captains are going, you're at 2:45, you better hurry up this meeting. And that seriously happens. Like they're very, very mindful in a veteran locker room about the 3-hour rule. Now that's 3 hours for the players, not anybody else. And on a lot of the training camps that they've had here in Arizona, you have 60 players. So we're talking about 3 sets of 20. So if one group starts at 8 in the morning, the next group's going to start, well, that group's on the ice. They're going to start at 10:30. Well, this group's starting at 1. There are bodies going everywhere in that arena. There's guys in the
Stan
gym.
Wilson's not working 3-hour days, right?
And I tell you, those are the guys, the equipment guys, Stan Wilson and his staff, to put this thing together. They have everybody's schedule on their wall, taped every day, and moving pieces to get all of this to happen. It's impressive because coaches will be on the ice till 10:35, and at 10:36, they're doing a video meeting with the next group in their skates while they still have the whistle in their hand. And there's so many things moving around. 1, because you have a lot of bodies, and 2, you need to get them out of there in 3 hours. So you really have to keep things moving. So it's a circus down there right now. And talk about Stan and Tony and Jason in Denver. I'm going to plug them today because today they're skating at tomorrow they skate at Gila River. The next day they're at the ice stand in Scottsdale. And the day after that, they're back at Gila River. So that means the entire operation has to move from the West Valley to the East Valley to the West Valley. That's an incredible difficult task. I feel so bad for those guys.
There's so much more to say about those guys and the time they put
in. It is so hard.
You see it on the road when we hit the ground, and those guys go immediately to the arena.
Hardest job in hockey, without question. Without question. And you got to take your hats off because this operation couldn't happen without these guys. And the players know it, the coaches know it, management knows it. They are the lifeblood that keeps this truck moving. There is no question about it. So it's just a brief little tidbit on the training camp, the 3-hour rule. So guys are in and out.
Really interesting. I had no clue. No clue. Any other notes you wanted to get in before we ended our training camp kickoff?
I think we covered it all. I'll obviously be out there.
And we're going to talk about it. We still have
This was just the intro.
We'll come back Friday, I can officially
yes.
say
Can you
this
announce it?
now.
Yes.
We're gonna have
official?
Christian Fisher on the show.
Christian Fisher.
Christian Fisher,
Craig,
who-
another good
Who
get.
complimented Craig
Oh.
today. He complimented his face during
Yeah,
media days.
nobody needed to see that, but Fish is. Everybody knows everybody who follows this team knows he already won the Shane Doan Good Guy Award last year, which is the award presented by media for someone who's accessible, quotable, articulate. Fish is all those things and a whole lot of fun. So really, Friday's show with Fish is going to be about fun.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun
And,
stuff
Yeah,
planned.
some fun for some
We'll
of
see.
you.
It might be
we might have some
controversial.
We'll see.
disagreements on life
Controversial.
choices.
Exactly. Well, we just want to make it a fun atmosphere for him because we'd love to see him be a regular fixture inside what we call the basement here at PHNX. I'd like to see Fish come back because his personality is exactly what this show and this format and this platform is trying to push out. Make this thing fun, and Fish makes it fun.
I did tell him today that he would have, some allies in terms of ketchup. I'm probably the only one who doesn't. He asked me today if I ate ketchup on anything else because I give him hell about eating ketchup on hot dogs. And I said, no, I don't eat ketchup on anything. He said, oh, you're just a weird guy all around.
He's a good guy,
So,
and I do want to get into some serious hockey stuff with him too.
Yeah.
What he feels, 'cause he's been here for a long time.
Mhm.
Fun. Well,
So it's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to that show.
He's
Yeah.
an insightful guy, so
Yeah.
be a great guest on the
Great.
show. Looking forward to that.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow for audio only, and then we'll be back live Friday at 1 o'clock. Thanks so much.